got nothing in here.
And we are live. Anthony David
Hello.
Vernon. Hi. So this is my first attempt. I was telling Anthony before we went live, this is my first attempt at a fireside chat. We had some very, very slight technical issues prior to this. Anthony, if you get cut off or if I get cut off, we'll come right back in and we'll try to have another go of it. Let's start at the top of the show with plugs. Who are you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my name is, as you said, Anthony David Vernon. I am a writer and I'm a master's level philosophy student at the University of New Mexico. I'm not really much on social media, but you can find me on Medium at AntmanVernon305. And then I just recently had my first book published with a small press. It's called The Assumption of Death, and it can be found on Amazon. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited to look forward to engaging in a pseudo-religious, pseudo-philosophical chat with you. That's the fun part about promoting a book. It's just a good excuse to talk to people and for people to want to talk to you.
Yeah. So everyone, the link to that book is in the description section, along with one other thing. Anthony, after the show, if there's anything you want to add in that description section, I already got the book. Oh, and I have your website on there as well. So You're also a poet along with being an author. So this book has it's like it's a potpourri, right? It's got poetry mixed in there too, right?
Yes. Yeah, I like to describe it as a very Nietzschean text because it uses poetry, short stories, and philosophical meditations to make its larger and broader points.
Oh, I'm the most what is it, left brain or right brain? If you're really cold, hard reason, logic, I get hardly any enjoyment out of music, literature, poetry. I mean, very little. There's only, I can count on maybe two hands, the songs that actually make me feel anything. So poetry doesn't do it for me, but I got on the website. Well, as long as we're on there, I'll just skip over there real quick. This is a really short poem, but it this one kind of made me think a little bit. Those who dig through the mines of frustration will find solace. Those who dig through the mines of frustration will find solace. What do you mean by that?
So when you actually dig through what's frustrating you, you find some relief, right? I mean, this is a very psychoanalytic position where you dig through just the frustration, you'll find some solace in that which frustrates you, right? But in order to get past that frustration, in order to get to that solace, you have to dig through that frustration and really get into the frustration in of itself.
Be aware of it and kind of crash through that wall of frustration to get to the other side kind of deal.
Yeah,
or
sure.
Am I okay?
No, completely. I mean, good thing about poetry, and especially because being that once I get my graduate degree, I'll start considering myself a philosopher. But the good thing about the tradition I'm studying in is the continental tradition, which I'm obviously nothing against the analytic tradition. They have great things to say. A lot of my closest philosophical friends are analytic people, but I'm obviously just not in that regard. And it's nice to be able to explore in these more multi-dimensional, inexhaustible, open regards and more, approach things subjectively and interpretively. Because, a lot of life can certainly be like that. While, big portions of life can be very structured and rigid and, right. And both have their own utility, and some shouldn't cross each other and sometimes they should. It just depends, right? I don't want a poet doing physics, for example. That would be a bit of a problem.
But you remember in that movie Contact, the main character, she says when she sees the vastness of the universe and she's going through the wormholes, she said you shouldn't have brought an astronomer, you should have brought a poet. You remember that?
Yeah, I do, and that's sentimental, right? I think there's Elon Musk's the project that he proposed, the one where it's that Japanese guy paid for and is going, and they're rounding the moon, and they brought an artist, a poet. I think there is some niceness to that and some conveyance of understanding. However, it's a different sort of understanding, right? Yes, bring the poet along to look at the black hole, but bring the astronomer also. You bring them both, right? It's not a matter of one or the other. I think both offer good insight and good information to humanity, right? Poetry, I think, is very good at inspiring direction and creativity. It's good at opening that. Whereas I think the analytic tradition is very good at getting down to the workability of things, right? I think the continental tradition is good at like discovering questions, whereas the analytic tradition is very good at like making these questions like workable things.
I am hello, Jason Ellis and
Hey, Jason.
Harmonica Man and Tobin
Hello.
Templeman.
Hello.
I'll be checking in on the live chat periodically. I can't read it around on the other side of my mic. To let everyone in the live chat know, this is not me. I hate when YouTubers beg for donations, but this is a just cause. On the 5th of March, well, it's a telethon. It's going to be the 4th and the 5th, and it's being put on by student Dr. Ben. I've got a 2-hour block on the 5th. I think that's a Saturday evening sometime. So this is for Lavender Lady Diana. She's another atheist YouTuber. If you're not aware, she's got she goes to dialysis. It's an ordeal for her to drive to this multiple times a week. I think there's a fundraiser set up in her name for kidney transplant, and this is, I think, the second, maybe the third telethon that we've done for her. And huge just cause. I invite you to get on that telethon. It's going to be one of those. It's not simulcast, so you're going to have to figure out, like, find your friends who are in the know, like, where's the telecast right now, because it's going to jump around to like dozens of different atheist YouTubers. And there's still some spots open if you are a content creator. Also, and way less importantly, I'm $40 away from getting a new mic. And Anthony and I was telling him I was going to buy a new Yeti, because this one, it does its job. It's a good solid mic, but it breaks easy. The connection, it just shit the bed on me. And I was going to get a new Yeti, and you said to get a what? Or look into a snowball.
A blue snowball, yeah.
Blue snowball. I'm going to look into that. Anyway, I'm $40 away from that. So in the live chat, if you want to become a channel member, there's an opportunity there. You can do a tip, or you can do a super chat. So not begging for money. If you're going to give, if you got $5 to give, wait until the telethon this weekend and give it to Lavender Lady. All right.
Yeah, I'll do the same, of course. Awesome. I did not know about this beforehand, so send me that information when it comes by, and I'm more than happy to contribute.
Here's how it goes, Anthony, just so you're aware. If this is your second appearance and first time on an atheist YouTube channel, yeah?
Oh, well, this is my second interview for this book run.
Oh, okay. So what's going to happen, more than likely, I've seen this happen a million times, is you're going to get scooped up by all the other, we're going to start sharing you around. So you're going to be in the circuit too. So now that
I just want the donation link for the drive. I didn't mean like to put myself on the telethon. I just meant in regards, like, I want to donate. So that's all I meant by that. But yes, thank you. That's meaningful. Well, speaking of atheist stuff, I think we should.
And look at that, Jason Ellis. Thank you, man.
Thanks, man.
You are a diamond. I'm going to leave that up there for a while. Go ahead, Anthony. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we should get into some topics that we thought about talking about. And I think
hold that thought, Anthony. I got four more. Just chewing the fat before we dive into some philosophy or theology.
Of course.
Well, why do you go by why do you use your middle name? Because, and this is a joke. It seems like only serial killers use their middle name.
Oh no, I didn't think about that. Oh no.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh
James
no.
Earl Ray. I don't know
why it doesn't help. Because it's a book about death. Oh no, it doesn't help. Oh no.
But was there any reason why you as an author, or do you go by?
Yeah, so as a full name, I actually do like my full name. So it was a matter of like confidence in asserting who I am, right? And it's about being proud of who I am, full name and all, right? So it's just more this matter of being very open about, like, I am Anthony David Vernon, like, this is who I am, like, asserting my full self. And I like my name. I do. I think it's a good name. I like having 3 first names. I think it rolls quite nicely and authorly. So I have multiple reasons, but the main one is that sense of just asserting, myself, because this is a problem I very much had in regards to accepting myself and, liking the identification with myself. So using the full name, I don't know, for some reason, just for me as a personal tool, it helps with that full thing. And also, there are other Anthony Vernons out there. I don't have the world's least common name. So having the David allows me to also separate myself from search results and whatever else may come.
Okay, good point. You got is that Florida Marlins? I don't even know if that's baseball, right?
Yeah, they're the Miami Marlins now, but yeah, I'm from South Florida. I'm living in Albuquerque now, so I moved to two very culturally distinct from the rest of the country cities, but also culturally distinct from each other. So yeah, it's nice coming out to New Mexico from South Florida. South Florida is like nowhere else in the United States, and I'm in like most other Cubans. I lived in South Florida, so my most of my family background from my mom's side, actually all of it, is Cuban background.
That brings me to my third of four fat chewing questions. So I think maybe we should. I don't know if you've ever actually lived in Cuba. I lived in Cuba for 3 years, so maybe I possibly have that in common. Or have you always been a Floridian?
Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to go to the United States. It's very difficult for people of Cuban background to go, especially because my grandparents can't go, don't want to go because there's the possibility of, I don't know how high it is, but there's a possibility of harm and endangerment. And, this goes in multiple directions. My grandfather was jailed by Castro for a week. And then after that week, he was mass incarcerated in a stadium of sorts with his brothers. And after that week, that was the week he decided to take a Pan Am flight over to the United States. So it's one of those things where it's I want the situation to really settle before I myself would go, and certainly I wouldn't go with any members of my family, and I really have no one to see. And the other sad thing with my grandparents, even if they could go, they would not want to go because of how much the country has deteriorated since they lived there, right? They live in the perfect place. I mean, before Castro took over, it was a fascist state under Batista. So there was, they saw their country decline, but certainly the point where it's gotten to now compared to how it was when they lived there is dramatically different. So, they've even told me it's there's really no reason for you to go because you wouldn't be seeing what we were seeing. You wouldn't see what we would grow up with. You'd seeing a shamble of what we had growing up.
I got to see. I say I lived in Cuba for 3 years, but it's not as glamorous. I lived on Guantanamo Bay Naval Station, but I did get to go to Havana quite a few times and Cienfuegos and Guantanamo City. Way more beautiful than I thought it was going to be.
Oh yeah,
I think things might be looking up there. At least since the 40s and 50s.
Oh, well, I mean, actually the 50s was the heydays. It's more along the lines of the late 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s were the big problem periods. I mean, no, the island is still beautiful, right? It has some of the most preserved coral reefs in the world as a result of their basically their control of the seas, to stop people from leaving. So, it's not to say that there isn't a beautiful island. It's not to say that there aren't good people there. The issue is just governmental, unfortunately, for my own sake and my family's sake, right? It's a regime my family became refugees from, not a regime that's necessarily been good to us personally.
Couple live chats. Yes, Tobin, I as well. Hope Diana's fundraiser goes well. The last one in particular went really well. I think it was like $4,000 or maybe more. When that does happen, if they're doing it right, each content creator will have the link to that fundraising page on their description section. Mine is already in there. What is this? Harmonic Command. Yes. That's great. So Harmonica Man, you're one of the ones that helped kick it off. That's great. Now, Jason Ellis had a couple things. Hey, Derek, good to have you on. What did he say? Jason had, he was going to ask you if you, I can't even find it anymore. He asked you if you are let me find it. Oh, are you a theologist or a philosophy student?
Philosophy student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But theology is a subset of philosophy.
Oh, I mean, it just depends. Like, some people would say yes, some people would say no. Like, I have people in my class that specifically got their bachelor's of theology and transferred over to the master's program here. Some masters in philosophy that became masters in theology that became PhDs in philosophy. So they are closely related. Mine's a bit weirder. I got a bachelor's in history and then jumped to philosophy, which the semblance seems a little less obvious, but it's very nice having the historical context of when these thoughts and ideas occurred. And like a lot of my classmates do not have that. So, which, it doesn't, I'm not saying I have like a big advantage over them, but it's just along the lines of that. It's nice to come in to a philosophy program with a different angle. And I think I encourage a lot of people to do that. I feel like doing just pure philosophy, like, really pigeonholes what philosophy is. So I'm very it's cool to see theologians engage in philosophy, even, religious people that I have, disagreements with. It's still nice to see them engaging in other aspects of thought.
At the top of the show, you said you're not yet a philosopher because you're still in grad school, right? And
yes.
So philosophy, correct me if I'm wrong. I took Logic 101, Intro to Philosophy in college. Philosophy means love of knowledge or love of thinking, right? So you just
love
mean
of wisdom.
Professional love of wisdom. But
yes,
so anyone can. Well, I guess anyone can be a
can
race
love
car
wisdom.
driver, but do you do it for a living and do you win at it? So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't consider myself a philosopher, not because of the professional accolades. It's just that it's just a matter of, professionally I wouldn't consider myself one. And then, but from a personal level, if we're talking, I would certainly say I am, right? But I meant in the professional sense when I'm like, I don't have my graduate degree, right? I can't professionally teach philosophy without my graduate degree. So that's, I can't call myself occupationally a philosopher, only a philosopher in the sense of one who, yes, loves wisdom.
What can you do with a graduate level philosophy degree other than just teach it to other people?
That's about it. I mean, at least for me though, I take the route of writing philosophically, right? So for me, it's a matter of teaching and then publishing philosophical work. So that's the idea. So it's the engagement with wisdom, and for me, at least, my goal is to very much engage in originary ideas as much as one can originary and extrapolate and create new understandings. So that's how I view it, right? I want to be able to contribute to the human knowledge pool progression and advancement. That's the ultimate goal that
I have. The synopsis in the book, the book description, that link to that is in the description section of this video, guys. By turns charming and deeply disturbing, this collection of poems and meditations enthralls and mystifies. It is an engaging and mesmerizing kaleidoscope of ideas about mortality, infinity, and the very essence of being. And it's one of the most captivating hybrid collections I have ever read. I expect that Anthony David Vernon, this exciting new voice in literature, will be thrilling his readers for many years to come. And that's Jose Sotolongo, author of The Scented Chrysalis and Pushcart Prize nominee.
Yeah, it was such a lovely back cover review. I have nothing other to say than it was such a nice review, and it really doesn't it really grabs the attention, but it doesn't really give any details strongly about what the book focuses on.
Awesome. Now let's dive in. That's all the chit chat. That's all. Let's see. So, who is this book going to mainly appeal to? Well, first off, it's Atheist Edge. How much religion is in it?
What was that?
Oh, did I cut out?
Yes, you did cut out for a second.
Oh shoot, I'm closer to the Wi-Fi here by the fire. I don't know why. Um, who is this book gonna really appeal to? And since this is Atheist Edge, I
Mhm.
have to ask: is there any religion in it?
There is. So it touches upon a lot of. Well, I'll go with the second question first because the first one's actually pretty easy to answer. I think the book can appeal to pretty much anyone. I think there's stuff in here for everyone, whether you're a fan of just pure literary entertainment or want a good introduction into matters of philosophy surrounding death and immortality. So I think it's a very accessible book for those who take any interest in literature and philosophy. And I think it's a good introductory level philosophy book without being sophomoric. And that's not just coming from me, that comes from also Brandon's bookshelf, who he used those exact words. So I will, that's to add to it. But in regards to religion, yes, there are some critiques of religion in here, right? But not the ones you would expect. So it's not the, and no offense to this community at all, it's not the typical new atheist critiques of like, oh, this doesn't match to science, this doesn't correspond with reality. It's more along the lines of the assumptions that religions make, and the fact that they don't come to their own logical conclusions, and nor do the religious, right? The religious make assertions about death and immortality that don't really follow along with their actual presented theology and philosophy.
When I hear new atheist, it's usually as a pejorative, and it's usually coming from apologists.
Yeah, I don't mean it as a pejorative.
Oh no. I rarely hear new atheist. I never hear it self-described. It's but I understand.
Yeah, it's not. No, it's not. It's just to tag. Unfortunately, I mean, movements get tagged and ideologies get tagged, and you can loosely universalize new atheist, right, as just a thing. And yes, a lot of people do, especially apologists, mean it pejoratively, but it's just the essence of a movement that occurred, especially in the early 2000s.
Oh, I threw that up on the screen and it threw you off your train of thought, didn't it? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, because I was reading it because I'm just like, well, I'm actually glad he touched on knowledge. So one of the things that that this book touches a lot upon is epistemology, because of course it's called the assumption of death, right? And one of the main religious critiques, right, is that the religious often think that they have the only means of immortality, right? That they often talk about, they have a monopoly on it, right? There's not really and for many good reasons, there's not really an atheist push of, no, we can live on this earth forever. The only real exception to that is Nietzsche through the eternal recurrence. And so it just touches upon that. I think it takes away, because one of the strongest things that religion has to, I think, amass populace is that it's like, hey, we have immortality. Hey, we're offering immortal life. Like, look at this thing that we have. You all don't have that. You all just live on this earth and die. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with just living on the earth and dying, but, I think that's an assumption that one is going to just live on the earth and die, or that one is, that there is a sense of immortality in this life or the next, and that atheists can't have that sense of immortality, or agnostics for that matter, like myself.
It's like dangling a carrot, though. It's almost it's exactly the same as a snake oil salesman. Telling you you're sick, and here's the magical cure. And in the live chat, there's talk about it not being a robust. It definitely is a subset of philosophy. Theology is. I mean, that's indisputable. But how robust is it? How rigorous is it? And how testable is it?
Oh no, it's not. It's not as rigorous. I agree with that 100%. It's there. It's still philosophy, whether it's rigorous or not. It's like saying, I don't know. It's like saying because softball is a shorter field, it's not a sport. It's like, no. It's like you're working with less. It may be easier to get like home runs, right? Like what a theologist has to do to prove their point, a lot less, right? You have a Alvin Planck, I can't remember his freaking name.
Plantinga.
Plantinga, thank you. Right, he makes an argument of, oh, you don't need any evidence to prove God. It's like, what? No. That's absolutely ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Like, so yes, there's a lot of stuff that happens in theology and philosophy of religion that is not rigorous, but its lack of rigor still includes it in the family. So yeah, I can completely agree with those statements and comments.
Hello, welcome, Ox. Last show I did, Ox was in the live chat, and this is why I think I might need reading glasses, because I thought it said Oz, and Oz is another content creator, and then so he just announced his new relationship with Jenna Miu, who's another content creator, and I was congratulating Ox for the new relationship, new atheist power couple. You know, the hottest thing since Shannon Q and Pologia, or Shoe on Head and Armored Skeptic, and he had not a clue what I was talking about. So I apologize for that. And maybe I need to go get checked for glasses. Also in the live chat, there was something else. Dang it. I cannot remember my question now. That's why I need to write them down.
All good. It happens.
Let's go into so I take it you are an atheist, but you don't.
I would define myself as agnostic, like purely. Yes.
Right. So of course, being an actual student of philosophy, you know, like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy does make a distinction. And when we say we're atheists, most of us, philosophically, not colloquially. Yes. I don't want to start this argument again, Jason and everybody.
No, I know the argument. You're not saying that. Yeah, you're saying that, like, right. I just say pure agnostic because what's the word I'm looking for? Just because it's easier colloquially, because the assumption is made that, like, oh, they absolutely, you know, atheist is more of a leaning, not a outright claim.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen the actual flow chart, like, to find out exactly, according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, what you should identify at. Well, you can identify anything you want. You can choose. I choose the colloquial definition because I'm not gonna change the name of this channel to Soft Evidential Agnostic Edge.
Right. Like, for example,
what I technically am, a soft evidential agnostic.
Right. Right, but that's why I go with agnostic, because most people, and it's true for me, it's a matter of doubt, right? But I doubt in both directions, right? So, you know, I go with the Huxley, the one.
See, it's already begun. Jason, I understand. This is not a hill I'm going to die on. You guys, I totally get what you're saying. I see both sides of it. And Anthony, you would not believe, when this subject comes up, it can divide, it'll part a room, and it's ridiculous. There's no reason.
No, I mean, I think the assumption with atheism, right, is that, for example, and my sister would be one of these. She may not use the word, but my sister would be like what's quote unquote gets called a hard atheist, where it's like there's no possibility of God. God cannot exist. There is no God. There never has been. There never will be. Right. Whereas I myself examine more. I think one of the biggest problems when we talk about God is, what are we even talking about? And then once we figure out what we're even talking about, what is the likeliness of that particular idea? Like, for example, I think pantheism has a stronger basis than the Christian God, right? I think the idea of a detached being that lives in a weird world of form, like, I think that's much more unlikely than pantheism. And then, there's other definitions, like, there's some Sufi mystics I think have some interesting definitions, like Ibn Arabi's unity of being, I think, is quite fascinating, but it still involves that world of form detachment that you can't really outright prove, right? And, so I think these are the matters, right? When people, when talking about God, a lot of people are talking about different things. God to Levinas is not God to Maimonides, and so on and so forth. So I think that's the issue number one, where people land into, is like they don't have an agreed upon definition of what they're talking about, and then they're talking past each other using the same word but not meaning the same thing. So I think that's the dependent thing. But so I think that's problem number one. So and I think it's really hard to take the hard, at least for me personally, it's been hard to take the hard atheist position, mostly because of pantheism. If it weren't for pantheism, I think, or deism, I think a hard atheist position would be a lot easier if those ideas didn't exist, or if those ideas weren't tied into God.
Richard Dawkins says deism is just watered down theism, and pantheism is sexed up atheism. Which I kind of agree with. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, but just because like, right, I'm not saying these things don't have their problems, just like the agnosticism, but these things still, like, they still leave enough leeway and shadow of doubt. Even theism leaves a shadow of doubt. It's just, it's the problem is that, okay, let's say this world of forms does exist, right? Whether it be the Platonic, the Christian, the Muslim, whatever world of forms, like, if you get access to that world of forms and you can prove it, like, that may be a possibility. I don't know how large the possibility is. I'm not going to go with very likely, but it, unfortunately, there's always that, like, shadow of doubt. And I think, I think the problem is that a lot of religious people don't have that shadow of doubt. That's my big problem with them. They're like, oh yeah, for sure, this thing that we've never touched or seen, or like have no evidential experience or personal, like, yeah, it certainly exists, right? And that's just dishonest, right? That's just dishonest to say, like, I outright, I have outright proof and evidence of these things, where I think a lot of atheists and agnostics are a lot more honest in our position of having doubt, which sometimes makes debates frustrating, because you'll have one person on the other side being the flag is planted and waved very hard, and then we have, I think our position is willing to give a lot more leeway, for sure.
You just opened up another hornet's nest. I don't know why they say can of worms. Can of worms is not threatening. Okay, so first thing, I think the connection is maybe on your side. I think it might be. Tell me in the live chat, is it affecting the conversation, or are you able to hear everything Anthony's saying? If not, I think we can make some minor adjustments, but it would take some time. So just let me know in the live chat. Also, yes, Jason. Let me ask the expert. So Jason Ellis and a few people in the live chat I started the topic, and it never fails. But I just want to do a touch and go, just a touch on this, and we're going to move off to something else. We're not going to make a big deal out of it, but they're pointing out that the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy contradicts the Oxford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. The OEP actually, secondary definition for atheism is exactly how we use it colloquially, and that is a standard philosophical definition. Therefore, the Stanford is wrong.
Yeah, so it just depends on what part of the world you're in. Like, a lot of professors in the United States will use Stanford and say that's a good source, where over in the United Kingdom, they'll use that. I mean, it's the problem with words, right? This is more of an issue of words. I'm going to use a weird and recent example, but keep it 100, right? 100 is a numerical value. It's been a numerical value, but obviously when someone says keep it 100, they don't mean like, yes, be the numerical value of 100. No, they want you to keep it real, or like yourself, or like cool, whatever, right? So the problem with words, in any regard, it's like they're going to have flexibility, and they've had alterations over time. They're going to have colloquial uses, professional uses. So I think when having conversations, it's good to establish terminology, and this is something philosophy has a strength of, is that you pretty much have to start all your papers or essays with establishing definitions, right? If you don't establish definitions, you're going to lead to a lot of confusion, because people are going to imbue their own understanding. So I think it just depends on the conversation. I personally, and most of my peers in the United States, will use the Stanford. But if you think the Oxford is better and more philosophically legitimate, maybe some do, but that just depends on personal preferences or understandings. But yeah, I go with Stanford just because that's what my peers do, and it is a good source. And like, all those articles written, whether it's Oxford or Stanford, are written by doctorates of philosophy, and are edited by other doctorates of philosophy. So it is a good source either way.
Earlier in the talk, you when you were describing hard atheism, you you rattled off a whole bunch of descriptors, one of which being the concept of God is illogical, or it's just not logical to even consider a God. And from my little philosophical understanding, would that be an igtheist? And an igtheist, and how is an igtheist different from, say, a hard atheist?
That's just pure identification, right? You're not gonna, because atheist is not really a common term, right? So this is the problem here, right? Where it's like, yeah, like you have this term atheist, but my sister, who again, that's I just saw the Ox chat. The Braves are better, man. Y'all got a World Series recently, like y'all don't need to dump on me. But no, my sister, for example, she's a master's student. She's a speech pathologist, very intelligent person, but she doesn't explore, these matters. Like, we're in different fields, right? So for her, she'll just say hard, like she would use like hard atheist. Like, that's what she's going to use. That's the term she's going to use. Even though if you get technical with it, she's an atheist.
Well, Jen is in here, and it reminded me of something. I don't know if I'm going to do a separate episode about it. I do not want to poison this well and cloud up Anthony's. Let me just say this. There have been some recent revelations about a fellow YouTube content creator. Steps are being made by many people to it was some egregious, some heinous things happened, and so lines are being drawn, steps are being taken, and you'll find out more about it. I might see. I don't want my channel to perpetuate any type of drama. There's enough channels that do that. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, hit me up afterwards, and I'll give you the rundown as far as I know it. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but what this content creator did, it's not excusable. And I'm personally going to make some changes with regard to my relationship with this person. Probably it's just really unfortunate. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. You said proof and evidence in the same sentence, and I want to tell you what I think, and you fact check me, okay, Anthony? Mm-hmm. Now, I tell people this all the time. Tell me if I'm just talking out the side of my neck. Mm-hmm. Proof only, especially when believers talk to me and they say, you can't prove that. Anytime the word proof comes up, it's a red flag. And I'm like, stop. Proof only exists in mathematics and colloquially in the legal world terminology. Mm-hmm. Proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. So it's not hard proof in law, but in mathematics is the only place I think proof exists in every form of science. And correct me if I'm wrong, philosophy too. Well, I don't know. Philosophy is
in philosophy, yes. If you're using logic, yes. So syllogistically, yes, you have a proof laid out, whether Aristotelian logic, Avicennan logic. Oh my God, why am I a symbolic logic? Yeah. So we do have proofs also, and obviously, mathematics is a means to reach proofs, right? Mathematics is a type of logic. In terms of science using proofs, yes, especially in the theoretical and the physics side, a lot of, the notions they're able to prove are mathematical. But, they have obviously a different type of proof if their experimentation lines up with their hypothesis, right? You can have proof in the colloquial sense. So I guess
equations in science are provable. But
yes.
Theory, as far as theory of a body of knowledge, theory is as high as you can get in science, is what I'm trying to point out to whoever I'm talking to. Like the theory of gravity is never going to become the proof of gravity.
No.
The theory of gravity is based on a mountain of evidence. Theory of natural selection is based on a mountain of evidence that is it's overwhelming evidence. But it's proven is it's inaccurate.
Yeah, so proof is axiomatic, right? So proof exists within a certain confines, right? So the confines of science can only have proof in the colloquial sense, right? So for example, these equations prove the rotation of Venus around this, around our sun, right? Like the Newtonian sort of mathematical proofs. However, his proof, yes, it was close, but it wasn't fully accurate, right? You can't fully, you can only colloquially prove in science, where in like logic, including mathematics, you can prove axiomatically, right? So that's the difference. So you could still use the word proof for both, but for science, yes, the furthest you could reach is a theory, which is like, hey, we don't have outright fact, right? There's no outright fact in science. There's proof, right? There's a difference between having a proof and proofs, right? In logic, you have a proof. In science, you have proofs, which is how the words are often used by just people colloquially, or whether they be part of the communities of knowledge or outside of them.
Welcome, Min. I haven't seen you in a while. A financial supporter, a patron of the show. He says, "Oh, now, do you see this from time to time, or have you ever experienced this with your colleagues?"
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, it does happen in certain circles. I'm lucky that I have a couple professors who aren't, and I certainly try to avoid these things. But yeah, no, there is a tendency that these things do exist, and that this stereotype does exist. And I understand the reason for it. I've been very lucky to have peers that just aren't like that, and I hope I don't try to be that way myself. I try to correct myself on these sorts of things, because at the end of the day, I want to engage in the expansion of understanding with others, not only for my own sake, but with and for others. And I want to hear people out from where they're at, and I want to be very open and being like, okay, I was wrong about this, I need to correct this, or oh, I misunderstood. So yeah, it's a thing that exists, unfortunately, to a higher degree. And I think that's because philosophers see themselves as having very large importance, because for a lot of people, the philosophy is the first field of study that got away from superstition, right? It was failing, not just agreeing with what the Greek god said, that he was able to formulate the beginning of metaphysics.
I suck at segues, but this one you just landed on you just hand delivered me a beautiful segue. So with regard to elitism, Marcus Aurelius, I don't know if this is an urban myth or not, but apparently, allegedly, he had a guy. His whole job in life was just to walk behind him in battle or wherever he went, periodically reminding him that he is human, so he didn't get a big head. And my segue is, I don't know if that's true. If you want to fact check that, but
unfortunately, you cut off there. What was the?
Marcus Aurelius allegedly had a guy. His whole job in life was just to follow him around periodically and remind him that he's human, so he wouldn't get a big head.
Yes.
That is true.
Yes. Okay. So Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic. I'm sure a lot of people
was my segue, Anthony. Oh, perfect. Because
yes.
There's one person in particular. What's in that bottle, Ox? It is. You're not going to believe this. It is a strong coffee, very weak coffee, and a little bit of water and a little bit of date sugar, syrup. So that's what's in my thermos. Oh, what was I saying? So there's one other person in the live chat. He and I, he's been doing it way longer than me. I'm new to the scene, and there's a group that meets here. I haven't been yet, but I'm planning on it. But I'm reading Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, and
yes, good read.
It's only been maybe 6 months, but I never knew. First off, I was so ignorant. I didn't even know Stoicism was an entire field of philosophy. But the more I learn about it, gosh damn, it's already been a life changer for me. What do you think about Stoicism? You touched on it already. Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. So I have issues with their greater ideas of logos, right? That the whole universe is ordered via logic itself. Like I that's almost like this force. I also have a stronger, I would say belief, I guess is the best word to use, of free will than the Stoics do. By the way, I saw Ralph, very big Diogenes fan personally. If you're talking Diogenes the Cynic, I'll get back to that maybe. But yeah, I think what the Stoics are strongest at is psychology, right? They talk about very much like the only thing that you can control is your own thoughts, right? They don't even believe that you can control your own actions, not universally, but as a general rule of thumb, right? So, but the Stoics are good psychologically in the sense of like you get like you're in control of your head. You like need to be in control of your head. You need to be able to respond to all the situations around you, and you need to be able to respond to the duty that's in front of you based on the control of your own head. So that's what I like from the Stoics. I like them as I like their psychological stances, but I think their metaphysical stance is a bit much, and I think their stance on free will is not one I agree with.
Oxen, I'm not going to add rum to it. I would normally, maybe, I don't know. I'm retired. I can drink anytime I want, but look at this gut. And the 26 pounds that I lost over the holidays, I've gained not all of it. I've gained quite a bit back. So I got to dust off and get back on the horse. And alcohol is just empty damn calories. And for that reason and I did screw up a few weeks ago. If you were privy to the video that is gone now, you'll never get to see it again. That 4-hour just drunken rant about, and see, I say this channel doesn't perpetuate drama, but I get a few cocktails in me, boy, and I'll go to town on some of these other, if I've got a personal beef with someone, I'll talk for 4, and it's wrong. And whatever, Drew McCoy and I had in the past, I shouldn't be airing it out. It's already out there. I shouldn't be harping on it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Back to Stoicism. Like what Jason Ellis was talking about, the shedding of the ego, it's almost a very Spartan lifestyle. I enjoy that too. And getting everything down to its bare basics. And, I wouldn't call it suppressing emotion. How do Stoics deal with no emotional outbursts?
Well, so the Stoics, urge? Yeah, so the Stoics, again, it's about control of the head, right? So pretty much everything aside from the control of your own headspace is an external, right? There is some variation to this here and there, but for the most part, everything outside of the control of one's head is an external, right? And what they decide to do is that, hey, like you're not supposed to respond dramatically, right? The best thing to do is to control, not really, Jace. Yes, I think some are, but for the most part, just responding to his question about compatibilism, yes, a Stoic can be, but it's quite like you have to shed a lot of the classical understandings of Stoicism, right? You'd have to shed the metaphysical logos that grounds the entire universe, that creates the logic that thus occurs, right? So, there are some Stoics that obviously are, what's the word I'm looking for? That can be more compatibilist and free will based, but for the most part, if we're talking about Aurelian Stoicism in particular, no, he very much was, very much bound to the logos. You're bound to your duty. The only thing you have control of is your own headspace, and you must serve it calmly. The opening of Meditations, he's talking about, I forget the individual's name, but he's talking about the guy never laughed too much. The guy never showed anger or sadness and stuff like that.
That was Aurelius, Marcus Aurelius. It was only publicly laughed twice historically. And both of them, like, you never saw his teeth. He never showed his teeth those 2 times. I don't know. That almost feels. Let me ask you. I had a follow-up question. Mm-hmm. So all these, we come to this knowledge as Stoics, but is this objective or subjectively administered? Is it prescriptive or descriptive?
So at least Aurelius would argue that all knowledge comes from the logos, which is this divine logic. So the only thing that's subjective is how you mentally react to the world around you, how you mentally react to the externals. That's all you have. That's the only subjectivity, right? And Aurelius chooses to be, again, instead of like, I think some other philosophers would be like, respond pessimistically, maybe more like Schopenhauer, right? The will would be equivalent to the logos, you're negative. Whereas Epicurus, who's an Epicurean, would say, okay, you don't have control of the world around you, just be happy, right? The Stoics choose to be deadpan, right? Because they see a danger in both directions, right? Whether there's over hedonistic, abundance of joy, and this pessimism doesn't allow one to do one's duty. It's a very duty-bound philosophy.
Yeah, but that divine logic, I of course, as an atheist, I have a problem with that. If they mean it in the way that I think they mean it, and I would tend to maybe go Epicurean paradox.
Epicurean, yeah.
Right. I guess I lean towards more that. Just as a lifestyle, as a way of comporting yourself, especially in public. I really dig the Stoic view.
Oh yeah, and that's why I dig them psychologically. I think they're brilliant psychologists. I really do. I just think I think when you get past their psychology and that's the thing. A lot of people think of Stoicism as just the purely as a lifestyle, and don't realize it has a whole philosophical system behind it, which again is fine. And I think their philosophical system is bad. So I think it's better to just ignore that stuff and focus on the Stoic living philosophy.
Okay. All right. I think that's good for the live chat. There's no hanging threads in there right now. So deadpan, you said, I never heard it described that way, but that is so apropos. Deadpan. Because my favorite comedy is deadpan comedy. It makes sense. Yeah. I've never heard it described that way. I'm going to start using that. Okay. Let's switch gears real quick. Cause you and Jason, you went about two leagues above my rudimentary understanding of philosophy. You guys, when you started talking about compatibilist, I had no idea what you guys were talking about. But
so compatibilism is the idea that some elements of reality are based upon determinism and others are based upon free will. It's actually a position I agree with. I just the Stoics have almost no sense of free will. They're barely compatibilist by technicality because you can control your own headspace, but it's such a minimal compatibilism. So. And I agree. I'm with Heidegger on his sense of compatibilism, that you're thrown into reality, you're thrown into where you're born, your parents, your life situation, etc. And then from there, you're able to make decisions. So I'm with Heidegger on his sense of compatibilism. You don't decide what reality you're thrown into, but from there, you have a lot of freedoms, right? You don't have all the freedoms, you don't have total freedoms, but you're able to make a lot of choices from there on out.
This is maybe a 3-part question. How old were you when you did when I always say atheism is not a choice. It's you can't choose to believe anything. I don't know. It's not a choice. So when did you when did it dawn on you that you were an agnostic? At what age?
Yeah.
We'll start.
So I actually went to Christian schooling very early on. I went to a Lutheran school because I had a communicative disorder. And there was a good speech pathologist at a local Lutheran school. So I was put in there, right? And then followed up, I went to for all my high school, middle school education. I went to, after that Lutheran school, I went to a Presbyterian school. Rewind a bit in middle school, because I haven't really known anything else. My family didn't tell me otherwise. And, I come into the house one day, my mom's and dad's house, and I come in and I'm shouting hellfire and brimstone to everyone who's not a believer in the Jesus. I was going off like some radical ass preacher.
And
my mom, I was in middle school. I was in sixth, fifth grade, maybe somewhere around those two. It was one of those two. It was either late elementary, early middle. And my mom is horrified because I don't know why. My parents put me in a religious school without being religious and never told me that they weren't religious until this point. Don't understand why. They said it was so I'd have a good ethical foundation. It made no damn sense. But I'm shouting fire and brimstone, fire and brimstone, it like to every, and then my mom hands me a book, a kid's book called All the Religions of the World, and that's all I needed to like explore because I had not been exposed to any other religion or any understanding. I have family, friends, my school, my peers, all telling me it's this Jesus thing is true, this Jesus thing is true, and like I at the time I saw no reason to really question it. Like they were talking about Jesus in the same way they talk about dinosaurs or physics, and so I'm like, all right, well, this seems to line up.
So, needless to say, did your decision to make philosophy your career have anything to do with that revelation? Or
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be here as a result. I dramatically started questioning reality from that point on for the rest of my life, and it led me into that rabbit hole of like, realizing how easily I can buy into an assumption. Now I write books about a book about like to question all assumptions basically. So obviously I'm very much with Nietzsche in the sense that all philosophies have a psychological root. Like Kant had his philosophy because of his psychology. Spinoza had his. Sartre has his. Right? Like psychology is very effective of how one is philosophically, and yeah, this is a big part of it. There's these underlying circumstances, the environments I was raised in. A lot of the philosophy I project psychologically is a result of a backlash against that. And I mean, in many ways it's better, and at least I can be honest about that. But, I think a lot of people do fall victim to these circumstances where they don't question the world around them. And I just want to be a part of that. Hey, like give things a second, third, fifth, sixth thought.
Are you completely out in the open as far as your religious beliefs or lack thereof? Or you're not in the closet or hiding it from any family members?
No. I mean, my grandmother even knows. And like when I drove from Miami to Albuquerque to move out here, I mean, she gave me a rosary, right? And I have it. I hold on to it because it means a lot to her. But she gave me a rosary knowing my religious convictions / lack thereof. So it's one of those things where it's like I don't have any trauma. It's not like I grabbed the rosary with like my hands were burning. I'm like no. I understand it meant something to her. Love my grandmother, so I hold on to it and I keep it here. So, but she knew giving this to me. It's like this is for me, not for you. Like I'm like that's perfectly fine. I'm gonna keep and hold on to it, and I hang it up and I show her and a lot of my friends will come into my apartment and be like, "Aren't you agnostic? What's up with the rosary?" I'm like, it's for my grandmother. So yeah, I'm open with friends, family, professors, the world, like no issues there. And they're all accepting of me, thankfully,
I had when I was active duty, a fellow Marine came into my house and I didn't even realize it. He goes, for an atheist, you have more Advent calendar. It was around Christmas time. You have more Advent calendars around your house than any Catholic I've ever met in my life. And I realized I counted them up. There were 7 Advent calendars all around our house. I was like, oh well, I'm just counting down the days to Christmas, but just take it for what you will. So historically, traditionally, the Hispanic community is heavily Catholic. You say your parents were not religious at all. Your grandma is.
Mi abuela is, she's Catholic.
Dígame en este idioma. De ahora en adelante.
Exactly.
Nadie en el live chat va a aprender lo que es.
Stop using the Spanish.
Mi español es muy malo.
The words are fine. The pronunciation's a bit off. But
it's so gringo, dude. I am the most gringo. I learned at a institute where they teach you by the book. Entonces, español es totalmente por.
You're just gonna start using nosotros too much.
Oh gosh, damn it! And you don't have to say nosotros if you say podemos because it's already implied. I get it, but yeah, I do it very methodically, very stoically, and it comes out very like a robot.
But yeah, whatever gets it done. But yeah, so I have the very Anglo name because my dad was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, where they invent white people, and then my my mom's side of the family is all from Cuba. So that side of the family, not really religious, right? Like, they did like the bare minimum, going to church like on Easter and Christmas, but he doesn't know. It wasn't really a thing. My mom grew up with it. She went to a all girls Catholic school. So like my mom and her sister, and they grew up with all that. But my mom didn't really push that on me. She didn't really agree with the Catholic Church. She's like, the thing that got her was that these nuns aren't married to God. Like, the nuns at her school would be like, I'm married to the Lord. And she'd be like, no, you ain't. You ain't married to the Lord. So, but yeah, but my grandparents were. I actually got the Catholic baptism because my grandmother insisted that I be baptized Catholic. And so it's my grandparents on that side that are very religious, and that's my mom's side of the family is the side of the family I grew up with for the most part and lived with. So my introduction familially with faith was through and with them.
Well, it's Cuba, which is communist, so that makes me think, okay, that's maybe why your parents weren't super religious, because communist countries, even though it's traditionally Catholic area,
no, that's not the issue. No. So no, the communists were my family pretty much left at the beginning of the Cuban communist revolution, right? So there's some members that stayed for a while, but the difference is that Castro's regime wasn't as strict religiously as the Soviet Union in these regards, either way. But yeah, my whole family, by the time, they grew up, right? My grandmother left at 19, my grandfather left at 26, right? So it's like, a lot of people were in that range. Some were younger, some were Peter Pan kids. But even by then, like, you're 13, you're going to be taught a sense of Catholicism. No matter what the fucking state institutes, you're still going to put your rosary somewhere. So, that's the thing. Like, that's what happened with the collapse of the Soviet Union. It went from 70% of the population being atheist to 70% being Orthodox, because it was Orthodox the whole fucking time. Like, it was just people hiding their faith from the state apparatus.
Yeah. So when you complete your studies, are you going to stay in New Mexico?
Probably not. I plan on getting a doctorate in literature, so that way I could teach hybrid courses in philosophy and literature, and hopefully be able to sprinkle in some history and religious studies. And literature is a good route to teach hybrid classes, and so that's the game plan, to get a doctorate in literature from some institution that has that.
I want to talk about the book. Let's catch up on the live chat. Jason, you are ubiquitous today. Do you know the story of Diogenes and
Yes,
the chicken?
Oh, of course. Of course. It's Diogenes and Plato, actually. So Plato makes an assertion that to be a human, right? He's trying to define human, and he says human is a featherless biped. So Diogenes, the homeless philosopher, just the madman, crazy philosopher, but brilliantly clever, he takes a chicken and spends pretty much an entire day just unplucking all of its feathers, to the point where this chicken has no feathers. Mind you, a chicken walks around on two legs. So he goes to Plato the symposium. No, not the symposium. Sorry, the academy. Thank you. Yeah, the symposium is one of his plays. The academy is his school. So he goes to the academy and goes, "Behold, Plato's man." And it's a featherless chicken. It walks on two legs, so it's a man to Plato's definition. So Plato had to change his definition as a result of this fucking crazy homeless man spending all day unplugging a chicken. So and Diogenes is great. Like, I don't want to say too much, because I think he's worth looking into. He is the funniest, cleverest philosopher in, I think, human history. The man is brilliantly clever. And I like to argue, this is something you won't find anywhere else, I like to argue that he's the first anarcho-primitivist, which I think all the roots from that sort of political and philosophical ideology come from him. But yeah, great thing to look into. Sam Monella has a good video. Sisyphus 55 has a good video on Diogenes. If because there's not really, he didn't write anything, so the only way you could really get Diogenes stuff is from random snippets that you find. So best way to figure out about him is just through YouTube videos.
Is Diogenes the one that all he had pretty much to his name was his tent and his begging bowl, and one day he just looked at his begging bowl and he threw it down and broke it. He says, "I have too many things."
Yeah, so he lived in a wine barrel actually, and he got rid of the bowl because he saw a kid cupping his hands by the river. Right, so he's like, I don't need a bowl, I just need to use my hands to cup, I'm being too possessive. So he started philosophical cynicism also, which is the idea that it's basically, and to use a modern meme, it's to return to monkey, or to be less modern, it's to return to nature. Diogenes' symbol for cynicism was the dog, because his idea is that we should live like dogs, we should live in the wild. Society corrupts our nature, it corrupts our way of thought, it corrupts, what it is to be human. To be human is to live in the wild and to live amongst nature and to live like a dog in packs.
It kind of sounds familiar. So Diogenes and Diagoras, who would maybe think of Diagoras of Melos. Atheism, of course, has been around as long as religion. And as soon as someone said that thing in the sky, it gives us, it's got agency and it does things for us. And probably that same day, someone went, you're probably full of shit. So I think atheism's been around forever, but Diagoras of Melos is generally regarded to be the father of atheism, maybe what we interpret atheism as a structure. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a decent place to start. Because the problem is when we say that the founder of things, it's very hard to know fully if they're we don't know if Diogenes ran into an even crazier homeless man and learned cynicism from him. But to the best of our knowledge, we trace the founding to these types of individuals, right? It's very unless you have for example, ethical altruism, which is we know for sure it was founded by Peter Singer, who is still alive to this day and lives in Australia and teaches. We know he came up with that. We were alive to see it, but unfortunately, if you go way, going back to certain points, the best when you call someone a founder, it's just the best approximation we have of the originary thinker.
Oh gosh, let me see. Let me check the live chat real quick. Okay, let's skip over to the book now. And I want you to talk a little bit. I want to read one review that just jumped out at me. Anthony Vernon broaches the topic not typically discussed at the dinner table or ironically at a funeral, as it may seem externally dark by its cover. It's full of what if, the chicken and the egg, with nearly every page containing a topic for roundtable debate and discussions. This book of short writings would be very appropriate as required reading at an undergrad level of metaphysical philosophy class. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad description. I mean, I certainly, I'd like to certainly go more in depth, but it's funny. I think a lot of people are finding depth in this very small book, right? It's a very thin work. It's 66 pages. Very few of them are full pages. And I can proudly say this, that I think I did a good job packing a lot of punch very succinctly. But the main idea that the book covers is that death is an assumption, right? That to live is to die is not a ubiquitous fact, right? And that there's many avenues to, to get outside of that. So that's the main argument of the book's main crux of the book. And so, the main purpose of the book is to create these sparks of discussions, what do we know? What can we know? What are the things we assume? Or the things we don't assume? And so this book is covered with a lot of those regards. But the main two themes that it touches upon is immortality. Well, three themes mostly. Immortality, death, and knowledge. Those are the three main themes, and everything else kind of branches off from those three main themes.
Also in the title is infinity. Now, in math, infinities are dangerous. They're avoided. What do you mean by infinities?
Well, I mean, I mean them as they are used, mathematically, just this ever ongoingness, right? That it inherently has. Now, You could also argue with this assumption of death that it would also be inexhaustible, right? And that it can always be added onto, right? And those are two slightly different things. Infinity has the quality of already always being ongoing, whereas something inexhaustible has a limit and then it can always possibly be added onto. So I actually, I use, I'm not sure how often I really use the word infinite in here, surprisingly enough. I focus more on immortality, right? But of course, the assumption of immortality is that you're immortal in the sense of that you're infinite and not inexhaustible. And, this book doesn't really touch upon the difference between the two, but I would certainly in a later work like to touch upon the difference between the two, because I think they're a very important distinction. And I think the inexhaustibility is more likely something that would correspond with our reality rather than the infinite, especially because of the mathematical issues surrounding infinity.
Yeah, Anthony, I want to apologize. I think I originally thought the bad connection was on your end, but I'm getting alerts now that I'm on like 1 bar of Wi-Fi at times.
Oh no!
Yeah, so it is totally me. I had a pagan on the show just recently, and she was talking about the essence, the auras, and how your electromagnetic radiation comes off of you, and people can pick up on this and read it, and just stuff that I don't necessarily.
Yeah,
I'm highly skeptical, to say the least.
right.
And she said, we got on to death and what happens when you die, and her consciousness will live on even after all her atoms have separated. There is still going to be a Penny Reagan out there that can with her own personal identity and individuality and consciousness. And I said, is that going to last forever? So you were talking about infinity, immortality.
Yeah.
I think this goes in line with that. And when I don't know if she definitely had never heard it before, but I explained the heat death of the universe and what physicists believe is going to happen when that the last proton and the last black hole is going to evaporate, and there's going to be an end to this universe. And it just caught her on her back heels. She had no response to that. In her mind, it was going to be forever.
Yeah. So this is, and I'm going to read, if it's okay to read out my book.
Yeah.
So the occurrence of death, no matter how regularly it may come, does not eliminate death as an assumption. No matter how well or poorly grounded the notion that for all living things death is a given, this notion is still an assumption, right? So I'm not going to dispute the heat death of the universe, but I still think, again, it's an assumption, right? It has not, it is still bound in assumption, right? Our own death is bound by assumption, right? And let's say the heat death, for sure, we can outright prove the heat death of the universe does occur. Right, it doesn't fully eliminate the idea that the mind-body problem, that the Cartesian mind existing separately and like still floating around, right? That pagan may be wrong about a lot of things in regards to correspondence to reality. However, she is amongst a very, formerly until you talk to her, amongst a very small group that wasn't bound by this assumption of death, right? And I think that's what the book, mostly touches upon, is that these matters of death are assumptive, and there's a lot of ways we can live on. So I also touch upon, and this is this idea of always having been, right, and that's through legacy, right? So, and I think this one is the most likely of all of them ways that we're immortal, in the sense of that once we have impacted, we always will have impacted, and we always go on in that way. So the other ones, I think, I'm not trying to put a measure on the other ones, right? Because I think the other ones, like our body living forever, or going to heaven, or Hades, or our consciousness floating around, or us using technology to stop the heat death of the universe. So I think all those other things have a level of possibility to them. But I think for sure the most airtight means of our immortality is always having impacted.
Always is a really interesting word to use because it implies infinity. I don't know how it comports with this universe had a beginning and it will have an end.
Well, but okay, let's just say the universe has an end, right? Will you say that just because the universe ended, you didn't have this conversation?
Oh, okay. Now we're getting into some crazy physics with like Michio Kaku and Penrose. There's a bunch of them that think everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen is all as real as is the other thing. And
Well,
we're
it's
just
not
living
even.
on, and the flow of time is an illusion.
Well, it's not even that necessarily, which I obviously is interesting physics, but I just mean more along the lines of that once something makes an impact, it will always have impacted, right? That even the ending of something is still comes from the residue, like still had that residue still occurred, right? In a way, right? And so, when we typically think about matters of legacy, we think about them as a matter of memory and not as a matter of impact, right? We talk about, I'm basically making the argument here that look, every serf that ever existed on this earth, like they have a legacy too. They still exist in the sense that they impacted the earth. Their feet stepped upon the earth. They breathed. They traded the particles out, right? And so, yeah, so again, so that's kind of the main juxtaposition, right? Like that this idea that we make these massive assumptions of we're going to die in this way, we're going to die this way, we're going to die in this way, we're going to die in this way, and all of these avenues have a possibility of allowing for the inexhaustibility of person of us, I should say, not person, but the inexhaustibility of us, or even the immortality of us.
Anthony, I like to do a nice tight 90-minute show. So we've got 13 minutes left. I'm going to just go through the live chat. I had one more question for you. And of course, I didn't write it down. As far as theology specifically, like how often do you come into contact with philosophy students who are believers in God or that are very devout? And
I mean, all the time. I'm from Florida,
right? I mean,
especially when I was living in Orlando, it was pretty often, like if not daily.
So, does a typical class that you're in or teaching, how often does it turn into a religious debate?
Honestly, in the circles I'm at, that's different. In terms of my university program, not really. I mean, I think most of everyone in the program is, agnostic. And like I had a class on Nietzsche versus Christianity. Of course, we talk a lot about religion there, but pretty much everyone in the class took Nietzsche's side for the most part. But no, I mean, I think
he's a little pessimistic for my. But here I am.
No, that's a misconception. That's a big misconception.
Really?
No. Nietzsche is anti-nihilism. Like his whole philosophy is to overcome nihilism.
Really?
Yes, yes.
That is directly in contradiction to what
I know, and that's what everyone thinks. It's very bizarre. Like getting into, I must admit, like Nietzsche's a little darling of mine in the sense of that, like this book is very Nietzsche inspired. My philosophy has become very Nietzsche inspired. Like I've just become a very big time fan of his work and study, and I agree with him in many regards outside of his political project.
You mentioned nihilism. Whenever a believer, they almost use it as a gotcha question or a dirty word, like, well, you're nihilistic. And I said, what is wrong with that? I mean, a pure hard, like a Thomas Hobbes, maybe, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, someone who's just life is death, suffering, and it doesn't mean crap. And, I'm more of I think philosophically it's an existential nihilism where, okay, there is no meaning, there is no purpose, no prescribed purpose. It's the purpose is what you create for you and your society. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't consider it an insult when someone calls me a nihilist.
Well, actually, and this is a good argument that Nietzsche makes, and I think he makes the better argument for it, that it's actually the Christian who is nihilistic because they deny life on earth for another, right? They view this life as meaningless to chase a world of forms. Yeah, I recommend everyone in here, every atheist should read this book, and I'm surprised more atheists don't read it, and it's called The Antichrist, and it's a play on words. So in German, Antichrist, the word for Antichrist means both Antichrist and anti-Christian. And it's a very short work. It's like less than 200 pages. And it's 3 essays put together. And it really much touches upon that. It touches upon how Paul basically took the religion in a more metaphysical direction, whereas Jesus Christ, the figure himself, was a lot more earthly. And it touches upon the ascetic ideal about how a lot of Christianity is based upon self-whipping, guilt, and depriving of earthly experience and joys.
There's a lot of good stuff in the little back and forth between Tobin and Jason in the live chat. It's man, I don't even know where to begin on that. I'm gonna in fact, I'm gonna have to go back and read it after we go off the air. This would be a great time at the end of the show to plug your book again. And one more thing I forgot earlier in the show. I forget who it was. Forgive me. It might have been Ox, but someone suggested you're probably a very busy man with your studies and teaching and everything. But if you started a YouTube channel, the more the merrier. And someone had a proposed name for your channel, ADV Philosophy.
Nice, I like it. Yeah. I used to work as a professional freelance editor for a lot of YouTubers, so it wouldn't be hard to jump back into that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I for one, you probably don't need my help, but I'm available if you need me. I only
Thank you.
It's taken me 5 years to get 8,000 subscribers, so I might be doing something a little right, but probably not.
Nah, you're good.
No, I need to increase my production quality on my pre-recorded, my editing. The software I use, I get lazy and I only use like maybe 5% of its capability. I need to explore more what it can do for me. So someone suggested you start a YouTube channel. That'd be awesome.
Consider it. I mean, I'm very much focused on, and truth be told, like I used to make YouTube videos and stuff, and
you did.
Are
they still up?
No, they're not, and it didn't work out for a variety of reasons. Pretty much my own. It was me clout chasing and not being the best to people as a result, and and like I think I've grown a lot from there. But I learned that I didn't like sort of being a content creator and the regards that surround that. But I've been very happy to work on myself and focus on the writing and publishing route, which is like what I think I will stick to doing. But yeah, if anyone wants to hit me up, they can have I'll put my email in the chat, even if they have any.
Okay. While questions. You're doing that, I want to talk about the website too. I think yes, the website is in the description section of this video. Medium.com
yes.
ANTMAN Vernon 305. It's in the description section, and that is some just selected writings. And like I said, I'm very left-brained, but some of this kind of struck a chord with me, a little bit of it. And I'm going to go ahead and get your book, because that review saying that would be a good good for starting roundtable discussions and debates. That might be something I can use on my channel.
Yeah, and I don't want everyone. Starters. Yeah, I don't want everyone to agree with everything in here. Certainly, I would hate that. Actually, I'm very much. I want openness, and I want people to to disagree. But yeah, I'm very. How do I put it? I'm very happy with how this came out, and I think that it touches upon a lot of thinkers. So it touches a little bit upon Taoist thought, very very briefly through Hutzu. Touches upon Socrates and that whole sort of tradition. Like it even uses pop cultural references. So I think I had a good. It is Western focused very much in terms of the references, but it still touches upon a lot of thinkers from Heidegger, Blanchot, Mill, Epicurus, Socrates. And I have the J. Cole line in there, which I like. I'm a young dude. I like hip hop, so gotta get the hip hop reference in there.
Hey, there's a anchor on MSNBC that quotes rap is his poetry. It's his way of expressing himself through rap lyrics. So I mean, there's maybe something to that too.
No, for sure.
I went through a Zen Buddhism. I wouldn't by any means I would not call myself at any point in time a Zen Buddhist. I've been an atheist since age 6, basically. I mean, I'm one of those cradle atheists, but being a martial artist my whole life and teaching it and studying it and 4 black belts, you can't help but bump up against Zen Buddhism. So a lot of it's, I've read all the, Zen in the martial arts, motorcycle maintenance, a lot of Taoist stuff. And I realized I romanticized it too much. And now I realize all that was, most of it, not all of it, was a goat path to nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dissing, and we've got Min in the live chat too, just so happens, but he's our token Buddhist. The only Buddhist I know that watches this show, but he strikes. I think you can be a Buddhist and an atheist. Buddhism is more philosophy than a religion.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, there's so many debates on this. It's like it's one of those things, just like, oh, are you an agnostic or an atheist, right? It's like it creates that sort of separation and dispersal. I mean, I'm certainly Taoism is one of my big focuses. Like on my graduate page for UNM, my 3 interests are put down as Taoism, Absurdism, and Nietzsche. And yeah, there's a lot of the Zen Buddhists are kind of mixed up. A lot of like Zhuangzi and Mahayana Buddhism is kind of the big sort of mix of where Zen Buddhism comes from. And it certainly has its big time strengths. I think a lot of the koans they produce are quite beautiful and are, can certainly expand one's thought. But yeah, I think the issue with Zen Buddhism is that, being a Nietzschean and like even a lot of Taoists are very attached to like the earth and the cycles of the earth, where it's like Buddhism has this contradictory of like anatman, which is like there's no self, and there's no, like, it's not you inserting yourself into the earth. It's just you, if the illusory you being an aspect of the earth. So there's that sort of personal psychological disagreement. I mean, they may be right about that sort of position, but in terms of a way to lead life, I think you're kind of right in saying that it's a psychological dead end.
You earlier described Stoicism as deadpan, which that rang a bell for me. And now you talk about absurdism. Now deadpan comedy is my favorite. A deadpan and absurdist comedy. So I've never heard absurdism as a school of philosophy. What is that?
So it's different from absurdist art. So absurdism is not like, being ridiculous. So absurdism is kind of in the family of existentialism, but outside of it. So absurdism was founded by this guy, Albert Camus, this French philosopher and Nobel Prize winning author. And the idea of absurdism is you basically, you take a stance on the meaning of life that's very agnostic. Like, I don't know. Right? Like, I can't know whether life has an inherent meaning or none. But what I can do is push through it, right? And it makes the argument that one should push through life despite the ability to find the inherent meaning of life being absurd, right? It's an absurd quest. And Camus basically argues is like, you're so unlikely to complete it or accomplish it that you basically shouldn't go about it. And instead just push through life practically in a Sisyphusian way, right? Because he argues that life very much is a lot of pain and struggle, because he grew up in French Algeria. His dad died young. His mom was broke. Like, he had a very hard and tough life. And so, but still he's saying push through it as if you're like Sisyphus, the Greek mythological figure.
2 minutes left. Anthony, David, Vernon, any saved rounds or anything we didn't talk about, or final thoughts?
No, I mean, I think we've certainly, it's been sporadic, but I think we've touched upon a lot of things. And and I hope my work is the same type of way. I try to touch upon a lot of different things, and I hope to do that for the rest of my philosophical career. But I hope, I hope, unlike, going back earlier to the whole elitism thing, I hope I haven't been patronizing or elitism, because, there's this big tendency of stuff like that. And so I hope, and I've enjoyed the feedback and responses by the chat for sure. And I tend to look through them once this conversation is over. But it's been very nice. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a nice conversation for sure. And I'm glad you allowed me to come on and get myself out there.
I suspect it's just the start of things to come. Like I said, it usually starts a snowball. Once the other atheist creators, content creators, will once they learn your name, they're like a pit bull. They're going to have you on their show too. Thanks so much for coming on, and I really hope we do this again. We touched on so many things I wanted to go into depth about. And thanks so much to Jason Ellis for becoming a channel member. That was damn awesome. I'm $40 away from getting a new. I'm gonna look into getting a snowball mic because I don't like how this. The quality of the Yetis are good, but they malfunction too easily. And remember, on the 5th, well, the 4th and the 5th, it's a like a 48-hour telethon. You're gonna have to figure out which channel is going live. But from the 4th all the way to the evening of the 5th. It's going to be a 48-hour continuous telethon on different atheist YouTube channels. I've got a 2-hour block on the evening of the 5th. I think that's Saturday. And this is a fundraiser to, once again, help Diana get some funds for a kidney transplant and to help her with her dialysis. Really good cause, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we will catch you next time.